Hey guys, Trevor here from SpineWise, and I want to talk to you about an equation, a very, very simple chemical reaction which may be responsible for so many different mental health issues that are going around right now. If you're interested in this, please watch through to the end. If you love our videos, please like and share our videos. Help us out by allowing as many people as possible to see the content, and we'll also keep you up to date with what with all the videos that we're bringing out as well. All right, so let me talk to you about this equation, because this equation really is important for frontal lobe function. These are the things that allow you to keep your rationality, to goal set, to plan, to keep your attention, to focus, all these things, to understand the consequence of action, control your anxiety, can get you motivated. Frontal lobes are really key for this. And there's a couple of really, really important hormones, or what we call neuromodulators in the brain, known as serotonin and dopamine, which really have a major role in making sure that that process occurs. And when we start talking about serotonin and dopamine, there's a really big fundamental chemical equation that is responsible for that entire production. And this is what we're looking at here, okay? And the real reason this is important is because of something that you may see on your labs known as zinc and copper. And you may see zinc and copper and they get tested, and if you don't understand what it actually means and how to properly read zinc and copper, you may be missing out on the most important aspect of your biochemistry in one of those labs when it comes to your mental health. All right, so let's have a chat about this equation. All right. So this is top one here, this is our production of serotonin, and this lower one here, this is the production of a hormone called dopamine. Dopamine is our do hormone, it's the motivational hormone. Serotonin is our joyful, it's our happy hormone, okay? Serotonin is the one that comes out when there are blue skies. Dopamine is the one that makes you feel good about yourself after you're achieving something. Okay, so this is also the one that's quite strongly responsible for addictions. And even the excessive use of your mobile phone that you want to keep pressing buttons on is very much a dopamine orientated problem. All right, so let's go right back to the start. So both of these substances are derived from proteins or amino acids, one of them called tryptophan, one of them called tyramine. And both of these two have a substance known as BH4, tetrahydrobiopterin, which are key in the process of converting them across. And it's the real rate limiting factor. It's the real thing that determines the speed of that equation. And the interesting thing is BH4 is really part of a substance or a chemical process that occurs in your liver known as methylation. And we've done a ton of videos on methylation in the past. You can jump into our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page and go through and have a look at some of our methylation pathways that we've spoken about previously. Well, if we go a step back from serotonin, the first thing we really have is tryptophan. And the way tryptophan gets into the brain is via glucose. So you really need glucose to actively transport tryptophan into the brain. So if we don't have good function of glucose, we won't get the tryptophan in and we cannot produce serotonin. So if you're insulin resistant, you might already feel this at the moment, because what you might notice is after you have a large meal, you start feeling fatigued and tired and flat. And this is something that often happens when we flood tryptophan into the brain, and we produce a substance, that shouldn't be dopamine, I've written that wrong there, and we produce a substance known as melatonin. We produce a substance known as melatonin. And melatonin is our sleep hormone, it's our calming hormone. So when we flood this pathway, the net result often is an increased production of melatonin. And this is why a lot of people will like carbohydrate right before they go to bed as well. It helps calm them down and gets them ready for bed. So we want to make sure that we have good glucose function and that we're not insulin resistant, and being on a high-fat, lower-carb diet can sometimes help with that process. We need to make sure that we are producing tetrahydrobiopterin, which is a byproduct from methylation, especially utilizing folate and derivatives of folate. So these type of substances are used to push them across. But once we get into this area here where we're talking about 5-HTP and L-DOPA, this is where the fun really starts, and this is where it's really important to understand your zinc copper. Because we know that you can get 5-HTP supplements, and 5-HTP is a very commonly used supplement for serotonin support. Because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, you don't need to worry about the tryptophan issue. And L-DOPA can be found in actually some herbals, like quinupurins is very high in L-DOPA. And we can also supplement that to get those levels up, as well as certain medications that can do that as well. And we know that L-DOPA is very commonly used, or derivatives of it, very commonly used in Parkinson's disease to get dopamine levels functioning in order to improve the movement patterns of Parkinson's patients. The interesting thing is the conversion of 5-HTP to serotonin is performed by a substance called zinc. Really, really, really important in that equation. And then the conversion of dopamine over here to noradrenaline is actually completed via copper. So the reason this is so important is because there is actually a protein that is produced by your liver called metallothionein. Metallothionein. And the reason why metallothionein is so important is that metallothionein is a zinc-based protein that has an affinity for copper. It actually loves copper. So when metallothionein comes into contact with copper, it drops its zinc and takes its copper away. Okay, and we use this as a way to monitor copper levels and also to modulate things like heavy metals in the brain as well, and also to establish support to things like your blood-brain barrier. So if you can imagine two jars next to each other, like this, and they both have a water level. What happens if we start filling up one cup and this cup gets higher than this one, we get spillage, comes over there, and we end up with an even water level again between the two cups. Yep. So this is how this protein works. So if it loves copper more than it loves zinc, then any time that we're producing metallothionein effectively, we should find it removes all the zinc out of the system until the zinc level becomes higher than copper. It's a balancing act. So when you're looking at your labs, what we really want to look at is not what is the level of zinc in your system. We really want to look at what is the level of zinc in relation to copper. These are the two things we should be seeing. And what we really should see is that copper is anywhere from 80% to 100% of zinc. And if we're inside that level, then we know that we're producing this protein metallothionein efficiently. Okay, it's a very, very simple understanding of how we can look at these things. And the reason why they are so important is if your zinc levels are down and your copper levels are up, you're going to struggle to produce serotonin, and then you're going to push whatever dopamine you have across to noradrenaline. So we're going to end up with issues with serotonin production and dopamine production in theory. And the result of that is altered frontal lobe function, which means less joy, less goal planning, less reward, less enjoyment in life. So these are a couple of main important things that we often see associated with frontal lobe issues from a biochemical perspective and also from a mental health perspective as well. Anyway guys, that's a quick introduction into copper and zinc and why copper and zinc are so important, and that you shouldn't just be looking at what the level of zinc is in your labs. It's all about the relevance of zinc to copper, the ratio of the two together that makes it important for us, because we need to know what metallothionein is doing in the human body. Anyway guys, if you have any questions with that, just post them up. If there's any specific questions and you don't want to post them up, just send them directly to me. Always happy to help you out in any way, shape or form. And I'll catch up in the next vid. Bye for now.